All right, I'll watch this. Why not? It's a really short video. Let's look at it.
The utility of hate speech control has been discussed for
Just a second, I'm gonna turn it up.
decades. Proponents argue it's a way of maintaining social cohesion. The utility of hate speech control has been discussed for decades. Proponents argue it's a way of maintaining social cohesion and reducing tensions. Often, they're egalitarians who claim all supposedly innate differences between groups are actually made-up social constructs. As a result, they believe that hateful rhetoric is the only reason that certain groups are generally disliked.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing else that could explain this phenomenon.
No!
Since all discrimination is supposedly
Turn it
caused
off!
by speech, because we're totally, definitely equal
No,
in every...
no, you don't show this graph. We know what this graph is. We don't show this graph. This is not a good graph.
other way.
This is an IQ chart for all the different IQs around the world.
It makes sense in their worldview to limit that speech and therefore prevent division. If hateful speech is truly the first cause, just get rid of it. And now there's no more racism. And yet, despite these initiatives, racism has remained. So clearly, we didn't control enough speech. So just keep controlling more speech until it's gone. In the beginning, the advocates of hate speech laws argued that they were only going after slurs and extreme cases.
Nope.
But nowadays, even bringing up statistics, quoting the Bible, and disapproving of cultural practices all invite accusations of hate speech. Combine that with the unequal enforcement, where certain groups are protected and others aren't.
That's
and
the real problem.
It's become little more than a tool to control people.
That's right.
Which is why in this video, I'm debunking every argument used in favor of hate speech laws and ranking them on a tier list.
They better all be in Abyss tier. I hate all this bullshit.
And if you enjoyed, consider subscribing. It helps the channel. Hate speech leads to violence. The claim here is that hateful rhetoric is what causes people to become hostile towards specific groups. By being able to say it in public, they spread that sentiment and are able to organize, leading to violence. Thus, censorship is required to prevent this. The issue is, by censoring it, you're not actually getting rid of it. Instead, people resort to anonymous forums and underground groups. Since these discussions will not take place in the open, it fosters tribalism and echo chambers, which are far more effective at radicalizing people than open discussions, which can offer competing worldviews. Additionally, the act of censoring speech against a certain group will reinforce the idea that that group has power over them. As the saying goes, if you want to know who rules over you, find out who you can't criticize. Leading to more resentment and radicalization. Lastly, I find the argument itself ironic. It's effectively claiming that because we're scared that speech could...
It was really funny whenever Dave Chappelle was like, you can't... Can I even say it? You can't criticize and start talking about how the Jews control everything, because if you start talking about how the Jews control everything, well then all the Jews that control everything are gonna get rid of you. It was funny.
Lead to violence. The state must use violence on the basis of speech.
I was saying somebody else said this.
Hate speech causes discrimination. As I was alluding to in the introduction, the idea that random, unsubstantiated hateful rhetoric is the root cause of racism doesn't make much sense. Everyone has the capacity to say mean things about a certain group.
I sure do.
So why does some rhetoric get ignored and die out, while other rhetoric evolves into mainstream stereotypes? The truth is, stereotypes aren't random. They're...
No, they're not.
earned. If someone hears a claim about a certain group, but every experience they have with that group contradicts it, they'll simply discard the claim. On the other hand, if someone has a bad experience and then warns others, that's just collective pattern recognition. Once a critical mass of people have recognized the pattern, that's when stereotypes arise and maintain themselves. Stereotypes based on falsehoods or past truths that are no longer relevant exist, but they don't last long. It's the true ones that stick around.
Exactly.
And truth often stings, making them the most offensive. NPC tier. Hate speech silences minorities.
What?
The claim here is that if hate speech is allowed and becomes mainstream, people will shout down targeted minorities, and they'll be unable to practice their right to free speech. The irony of the people advocating for censorship to defend free speech is somehow lost on them.
Yeah.
It also just doesn't make any sense. It's not physically possible to shout down entire identity groups. Unless, of course, they mean that hateful rhetoric targeted at a certain group could lead to political action where they get the state or policy enforcers involved to silence that certain group, while allowing others to
Ooh, bad. Yeah, NYC psychiatrist defends out-of-context fantasy of shooting white people. Press calls whites inhuman, says let them die. It's actually crazy that white people put up with this. It's so embarrassing. I wish white people were more, had more self-respect. I wish we had more self-respect. Because, like, for me, like, to me, I would never vote for a Democrat just categorically because they vote for policies that disadvantage white people. If you're white, you should never vote for a Democrat. Just never vote. Like, the moment you hear somebody say this or say somebody do this, like any of this, like, you never let this happen. Have self-respect.
Speak freely. That would be truly awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The jokes write themselves. Abyss tier.
Yeah, that's really dumb.
Free speech isn't absolute. You can't shout fire in a theater, therefore you're not allowed to bring up FBI crime statistics. This is possibly the most deceptive argument advocates use.
Yeah.
It's true, you're not allowed to shout fire when there's no fire. You're not allowed to knowingly slander someone, nor are you allowed to file a false police report, commit perjury, etc. But all of these are an entirely different category than simply someone said something offensive about a protected group. When you lie about a fire, slander, or commit perjury, you are deliberately lying. When someone says something offensive, he isn't necessarily lying. He could be lying, he could also be honestly mistaken, or he could be telling the truth, just like every other form of protected speech. Abyss tier.
Nope.
Hate speech laws only limit offensive terms. And who decides?
You know, retard used to be the politically correct word to use for people that had Down syndrome. That was the politically correct invention at the time.
That's what counts as offensive? Saying Christ is king is called hate speech by many organizations. Not to mention what's considered offensive changes all the time. Look at all the times we've changed the word we used to refer to African Americans because the last word became offensive. It's fine to say people of color, but if I invert the grammar and say colored and people, it's hate speech.
And
the more concerning fact is that the most offensive things are often those rooted in the truth. Is bringing up
the most offensive things are often the ones rooted in the truth. This video is really like, bro. Wow. That's really something.
IQ disparities hate speech? What about crime statistics? Is it possible to be hateful by bringing up data which I believe to be true? And don't use the cop-out that it depends on the intention. Data always has a purpose. If I bring up crime statistics, it's not just because I want to memorize some fun facts for trivia night.
Yes.
Data shapes policy, as it should. Are we supposed to censor data that someone could interpret as offensive, even if it's true? Or is truth unnecessary in the world you're building?
Unnecessary.
NPC tier.
Nope.
Hate speech laws don't harm free speech. The claim here is that hate speech rules would only target offensive speech. With that exception, free speech remains unharmed. The issue is, the only speech that needs protection is offensive speech.
Of course.
Inoffensive speech does not need the First Amendment.
Nobody needs the First Amendment to say what their favorite flavor of ice cream is, okay?
Because people wouldn't be offended by it by definition, and thus wouldn't retaliate. To limit free speech to only that which is inoffensive is simply to abolish it. I'd have more respect for these people if they straight up said they were opposed to free speech, instead of playing these word games. But I suppose word games is how you win in politics. Abyss tier. Hate speech causes psychological harm. The claim is straightforward. People saying hateful things hurts, which is true. but then escalates by saying we should therefore be allowed to retaliate with state-orchestrated violence.
Oh!
Because that's what censorship means. It means the state or some policy enforcer
They say you
with
have
the
to do
use of
this.
force will hurt people who say offensive things. State violence is hardly a proportional and reasonable response to hurt feelings.
Exactly.
If you can't just ignore the words and you are compelled to respond...
If you can't deal with a society where you have to hear things that make you mad, you need to go back to the PvP server you came from. This is not the way that we do things here. It's not. That's it.
Then the most appropriate retaliation will be to follow the principle of an eye for an eye. Or in this case, a mean word for a mean word.
Exactly.
Flawed here. Hate speech destroys unity. The claim is that hateful rhetoric is what divides people, and therefore by allowing it, you invite disunity. The issue again is blank slatism.
Yes.
There's more that divides people than just arbitrary mean words. In fact, I can prove it to you right now. If you're a proponent of hate speech rules, you likely believe that Shiloh
You're likely a woman.
Hendricks should be legally punished for her use of the N-word.
Yes.
However, you're unlikely to agree that a black person in the same situation ought to be punished similarly. Therefore...
Can you imagine, like, bro, like, somebody makes a law that all black people... Like, we have a hate speech law against saying the N-word, and then they just go around and arrest all the rappers and black people? That'd be, like, the biggest thing. It's like some fucking, like, the president runs on this. He's like, all right, here we go.
the literal
Be careful what you wish for.
Speech itself isn't your concern. The person is. Hendrix's crime wasn't using the word. Her identity in that situation was the problem.
Yeah, your
meaning you've
identity is the
already
crime.
divided people along racial lines just to enact your hate speech laws, contradicting your own point.
Of course.
NPC tier. Censoring speech doesn't make people stop discriminating. It just creates a new, institutional way of doing so.
Well, it's one-dimensional, it's one-directional discrimination. People want to censor speech because if you can't talk about certain issues, it becomes harder to hold them accountable for manifesting those issues. So if they can make up a bunch of rules to where you're not able to talk about X, Y, and Z, then now they can go and say like, well, all right, I don't have to hold myself accountable for this anymore because I can do whatever the hell I want. The false charges, yes, it's about power. Everything is always power consolidation. I've said this before. I've said it again, and again. It's all about power consolidation. These people don't care about hate speech. They hate you and they want to control your speech. That's it.
Can be easily exploited. That concludes the tier list. If there are any other arguments you'd like to see ranked, please share them in the comments below.
What a great video. What an amazing fucking video. I love it. Basic Logic, 342,000 subscribers. Absolutely crazy. Take a look. If it's illegal crime statistics, well, think about why they're trying to delete crime statistics, right? Like, they're already trying to delete them and hide them and make it to where, like, people aren't able to see them, remove certain different levels of, like, you know, triangulation of, like, who's at fault, etc. Like, that's really what happens is that, and they do that because they know what the conclusion is. They don't do that because they want you to, you know, fucking, they're worried about something. They do that because they know what the conclusion is to it, and they don't want you to come to it. They want to take advantage of you, and they want to manipulate you and make you believe shit that isn't true. Like, that's it. The fundamental goal is manipulation. That's all. It's always the goal is manipulation. I'll link you guys the video one more time. So just followed such a good channel. Yeah, I'm glad that more people are talking about this topic too. I am. They're changing criteria just to manipulate data. Yeah, exactly, right? You see them making Hispanics such as white as when arresting them. Yeah, mislabeling people as white, etc. Yeah. Well, and you know why that is, right? It's because the system probably defaults you to white, right? And then you have to change it if the person's another race. So you're going to clearly have mistakes where people don't change it. But my response to that would be, if the system defaulted you to black, would they change that? The answer would be absolutely. So why is it acceptable that white is the default, but black is not? Well, it's not acceptable. It never was. But, you know, again, it's another example of white people, you know, accepting and tolerating systemic discrimination and systematic disadvantages just because they're uncomfortable having any sense of self-respect. It's embarrassing. It's so fucking embarrassing. It makes me so annoyed.